Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis. Although most of the cars I source are between £1,000 and £5,000, very often I've been asked to show something a little bit cheaper on the channel, and so I came up with No Budget Reviews, the series where we look at cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and you can enjoy driving. We don't film this in an expensive manner, we don't use separate microphones, we don't use dual head tripods, we don't even use a DSLR, but we do have a lot of fun. Well viewers, it's a special episode of No Budget Reviews today. Here we are at Broadmarsh Coastal Park, which is near Havant in Hampshire, and I've been asked by James, who is also in the Portsmouth section of the Volvo Owners Club, to do a video on this car. This is actually his grandfather's car. His grandfather doesn't drive anymore. I think his grandfather's had it for something like 15 years. It's a 2000 Honda Civic MB, or Civic 5-door Swindon Civic, they're all the same thing. 1.5S, which his grandfather has no longer use for because he's given up driving. James has been tootling around in this a little bit for about a year, but he's decided he doesn't really need this. They've got other cars in the family, and so he's asked me to have a go in it and see what I think of it, but also with a proviso that this car is actually for sale. Now it does have a current MOT at the time of filming, but it does need a new one, and there are some things that need doing. He's been offered about, what is it, sort of £400 or so by the scrap man for this car. And I think really he just wants something around that, for somebody to come and give it a new lease of life. One of the main areas to look for on these old Swindon Civics, same as the Rover 400 of this time, or Rover 45 or MGZS, they're all very similar. There's a rust back here, as you can see. That's going to need addressing, isn't it? Don't know what condition the sills are in. You have to look under the sill covers. The brakes, they're not the best at the moment. They probably do also need doing. I'll explain something else that does need doing as well in a second, but it would be such a shame for this car to go to scrap. It's not the lowest mileage, it's not the best spec, but it drives really nicely. Obviously I'm very familiar with this design of car, which was first launched in Japan in 1992 as the Honda Demani, which means tomorrow, and it was a saloon. The Rover 400 HHR model and this was sort of co-developed side by side. Rover sort of adapted the design for their own kind of, tastes and things like that, which is why the front and back of this car is very different from the 5-door HHR 400 and also the 45 hatch that came later in 2000, the same year this car was made. These MA, MB, MC, Civic, so the technical chassis codes for these. There was also an estate version called the Civic Aero Deck, which you can actually put the front end for a Rover 445 on, and some people have done that, and they look absolutely great actually if you do that. It's a straight swap to do it. These were discontinued in 2001. The chassis underneath here is very similar to the UK Civic at the time, and it's also related because it's based on 92 Demani. It's related to the kind of EG Civics and things like that from the early 90s. They're all really similar underneath, and that's why you can swap various bits and pieces off these and put them on Rovers and things like that. They're not directly related to the R8 Rovers. They've actually got double wishbones, I think, all round on these. They're always multi-link, so they're quite a sophisticated setup for the chassis, and these don't cost anywhere near the same as an EG Civic. There we go. You can use the release inside or use the key. I don't know what's happened to the parcel shelf with this. It could do a good clean, to be honest, this year's. Also, these always come off, it's really common. But what we've got underneath here, I lift this carpet up, and then there's a board as well. You can see you've actually got a full-size spare in there, which is good, and all the tools. I think the boot floor is quite solid in this car. I prefer the saloon version of this design. The 400 or 45 saloon I think looks better, but the 45 hatch is good as well, or 400 actual, or this Civic 5-door. This is a 1.5 IS. And it's actually got VTEC in it. It's not the VTEC that would be used on a 1.8 VTI version of this, but it does seem to have some kind of funny thing going on with the economy, where it does actually kind of close one of the valves. I think it's either 3 or 4 valves per cylinder in this car, depending on how you drive it. And there's an economy light on the dash which shows you what mode you're in, which is nice. The interior is actually very good on this car. It's really good. The headlining is sagging, which is quite common on these. It's common on the Rover versions as well. You can see the back's what we sat at the last MOT, so I will sit in the back. There's not the most room in here. Similar thing with the Rovers, really. They're not the most spacious in the back. But the seat fabric's in really, really good condition. Considering this car's done 103,000 miles and is 23 years old, it's not bad. Just needs a bit of a clean in here, really. No sunroof in this particular one. You have to step up, I think, to get it's on like an SE to get that. And no leather seats, unlike the last Honda Civic I drove, which was on the channel last year. Similar age, about 2000 as well, but it was an SE Executive, I think, with beige leather interior, viewers. Because I do like a nice beige leather interior. Are those old Metro window winders? Possibly. Haven't got any electric windows in the back there, but never mind. It's not the end of the world. I think this mirror here, that's not working at the moment. The passenger one works though. James has changed the gear lever in here because the other one was just all chewed up and nasty. So he's temporarily just put this cheap one he found on eBay on here, which is not quite the character of the car, but unless you're thinking of a sort of modified Honda scene, which maybe it is, I don't know. Depends what you want, doesn't it, really? Nice clear instruments, as you can see there, 103,000 miles. Interestingly, the Rover 45 I have is a digital mileometer, and this has a mechanical one. And the clock actually works, which is amazing, because my clock doesn't work, and the door cards are not sagging. My door card is sagging, viewers. There we go. We don't have as many features as I was in my 45 V6. We don't have cruise control, that would be sort of there. We don't have front fog lamps, that would be on the left of the other fog lamp switch. We don't have the winter mode for the automatic gearbox, because there is no automatic gearbox in this car. It's just a 5-speed manual. These torques look really, really similar, because they are exactly the same. Come on, autofocus, humour me. There we go. Actually got a strip of wood on my dash as well, which just like in the Rovers is a soft touch one, and that airbag thing's not lifting either. So yeah, you've got quite a lot of advantages in some ways over the own car that I have every day. The seats are nice and comfortable. They've got sports seats in this. Got some history in there. It's not a full history by any means, but there is some history in there. And the difference here is we've actually got a rear wiper as well. Mine didn't have its wiper because it's a saloon. But saloons with rear wipers views are very, very much fun, as you know. We also haven't got a storage cubby here. We've only got 2 electric windows, so we've only got that one on that side. I also got somewhere to put, I don't know, a full-size pork pie. I'm not sure. Ashtray is in here. If it actually opens, and I should pull it like that. Have got air conditioning. Apparently that works. The heater resistor is gone on this. It's quite an easy fix, actually. There's a kit from Discount MG Rover Spares that I've had on my 45 V6 that you just change the resistor, which is you take the glove box out and you're just able to do it. It's not that big of a job. I still messed it up for viewers because I'm an idiot. Right, let us have a look under the bonnet, shall we? See there, it is an MB. You can see it says MB in the chassis code there. Brake servo is here. The gearbox is on this side because this engine turns in a completely different direction to the K-series units that were used in the HHR 400, 45 and ZS 4-cylinder models. This is the Honda D-series, which is a very, very hardy engine. They do sometimes blow head gaskets, but it's not normally as common as on a case series. You do need to actually service these properly. They need cam belts. This car could do with one, to be honest. And they do weep oil from the cam cover gasket. It's very, very common. This car is doing it, but that's a very cheap and easy fix. Actually, it's not a complicated thing at all on these. And you can run these sometimes if you don't mind the engine actually dying. You can sometimes drive these without oil or coolant. I have seen people do that. If it's the last resort and it gets you home, they actually will be quite tough in that respect. They're not the best sounding engine. The B series 1.8 VTI engine, which was in the top of the range models, is a bit more characterful than this, but this is fine. It's fine. It's very smooth and everything like that, and it's quite easy to work on. You can see the engine bay is actually quite naked. The facelifted cars like this, I think they came out in 1998. They do look considerably better than the pre-facelift ones. So you can see we've got a few battle scars on here from James's grandfather not being perhaps the best driver, and the wheels could do with a bit of a clean, couldn't they? But it's not too bad. It depends what you want to do. If you're quite handy with mechanical things, you just something to run around in that's kind of actually mechanically quite good, then this will do, wouldn't it? Right, I think it's time to go for a drive, viewers. The engine's available in one of these Honda Civics or Civic 5 doors, or a 1.4 with either 88 or 90 horsepower, depending on the year. There were also 1.5 litre versions of that engine, like this one in fact. The 1.5 initially developed 88 horsepower. I think that was due to the VTEC E system that's in this. And later models like this, 112 horsepower. Then there's the 1.6. There were actually two 1.6s fitted to this generation of Civic. The 5 doors only had the D series, which was the least powerful one. It either had 112, 114 or 122 horsepower, depending on the year. The one I drove last year had 123 horsepower. The other VTI Civics were the 3-door and saloon, which actually aren't based on this design. They're based on a similar platform, but they are a different design. Those are quite fast actually. They have 158 horsepower, and they're different gear ratios from the 1.8 B series that you get in the VTI and VTIS models of the 5-door Civics, which have 167 horsepower. There are also some diesels available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and all kinds of other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. What we do talk about is the really nice, smooth gearbox in this car and the excellent suspension setup. It is a real delight to drive it. The steering is weighted just right. The suspension, double wishbones at the front and the multi-link system in the back means the car handles really nicely. There's a very good balance in this car between just that edge of firmness that a lot of Honda models have and ride comfort. The VTIs would be a bit different from this, but this genuinely feels quite sporty to drive. Now, 0 to 60 in this car is not going to be anything impressive. I think it's about 11 seconds, but it just feels absolutely great. I'm amazed this car is 23 years old and has done 103,000 miles, because if you want to drive this, it just doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it at all. Yeah, gearbox is nice and smooth. Pedals are in a nice place. Driving position is good. Rear visibility is not the best. The old Concerto was better in that respect. But yeah, just a really pleasant little car. The D series isn't the nicest sounding engine ever, but in this car it actually sounds better than I remember. Yeah, I'm quite enjoying this. It even got the economy light on, viewers. How impressive. Let's now look at some Swindon Civic trim levels. So when the car was quite new, they were things like LS, LE and ES. Later on, they were changed to lots of variations of the SE, the SE, the SE Executive, the SE Executive Sport, the SE Sport, and the Sport. It gets very confusing. There are also VTI and VTIS models, so named because of the VTEC system in them. There was just a basic one, just a 1.4i, and then there was this, which was the S model, which is kind of just above the bottom, but we still get air conditioning alloy wheels in this. So viewers, should you buy a Civic 5-door, Swindon Civic, Civic MB for your Honda budget up to £1,000? In fact, should you buy this one? Well, it depends. This car does need some work. It's not in the best cosmetic condition. That rust needs treating. The brakes need doing for the MOT and some other things. And it could do with the cam belt. But this could be an ideal little car to run around in. They're very nice to drive this. I'm actually quite surprised how smooth and quiet this one is. It's obviously been reasonably well looked after during its life. Yeah, it depends what you want. Obviously, I've owned quite a number of cars of this design. And I really like them. I think they are much better than they actually first appear. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Please feel free to contact me via my email address, which is on the screen towards the beginning of the review. If you're interested in buying this car, it's based near Havant in Hampshire, and I'll pass your details on to James. And we shall see you again soon for more inexpensive motoring.